Nothing changes instantaneously. In a gradually heating bathtub, you'd be boiled to death before you knew it. Our Father, who art in heaven. Seriously? What the actual fuck?
Gilead doesn't care about children. Gilead cares about power.
Why does healing have to be the only goal? Why can't we be as furious as we feel?
For whatever man sows, so shall he reap.
Welcome to Above the Garage.
Hi, friends. Welcome to our recording of Season 5, Episode 4 of The Handmaid's Tale, which is entitled Dear Offred. Let's do our round of introductions and dive in.
Hi, I'm Marigold.
Hi, I'm Melissa.
Hi, I'm Rachel.
Hi, I'm Kimberly.
Hi, I'm Scarlett.
And I'm Kate. So this episode is written by J.C. Heldrick and directed by Dana Gonzalez, who also directed the last episode. They tend to direct in 2-episode blocks until the end of the season when Bradley and Lizzie split the last two. Anyway, this episode opens with June pushing Holly on a swing, but her mind is very far away, thinking about wanting to kill Serena, I guess. But she's approached by a woman who snaps her out of her daze, asking how old her daughter is, 14 months? Which is kind of interesting to us, because I feel like we're always wondering the age of the baby. June's friendly enough, but the mood changes quickly when the woman calls her Nicole. Something she shouldn't know. She immediately senses danger and picks Holly up out of her swing. And the woman continues to rave like a lunatic, telling June, she also knows June's name, that she also wanted a daughter, but her pregnancies were always boys. So I guess she miscarried. And then she gets extra crazy and starts going on about how lucky June was that she was in Gilead and has a baby to show for it. And June, I think very reasonably loses her shit on the woman and starts pushing her. Do any of you think she was acting out excessively?
Not at first.
No.
I don't think at any point, like for someone who went through the trauma she did in Gilead and literally had her children stolen so many times, I feel like the entire interaction was pretty on.
Well, especially when the woman was like calling her like, slut or whatever. Like,
yeah, exactly.
You could tell that this woman was obviously a Gilead sympathizer and maybe she would try to steal Nicole.
Right, and legitimately crazy, yeah. And she's had her kids stolen many times. So I'm not concerned.
And also, this is exactly how Hannah, when she was a newborn, was taken from June. So,
yeah, like it wasn't shocking to me at all, though. Luke and she seemed quite concerned about it in the next scene, and I was like, nah. It would take more than that.
I'm actually glad. Yeah, I'm actually glad you said that because I was thinking the same. And when I saw the scene later, I was like, really? Because I felt like, I would have done the same as well.
Well, the next scene is at counseling. I guess they got tired of people complaining about no counseling scenes. And while I thought those people were wishing for the most boring television show ever, I actually do really enjoy this counseling scene. I think Lizzie's so great in it. So they're talking about the incident. And Luke tells her it's okay, you were just protecting Nicole. And in my favorite way ever, June says, it went a little past protecting. How far? June says, it got physical with this like delightful facial expression. And the counselor's really great here too. She's like, was she all right? June kind of whispers, I didn't stop to find out. And Luke's trying to process it without freaking out and says, okay, so how do we know she won't get physical again? And June's like excited by this question. Like she'd really like to know the answer. And it's like, yeah, that's a good question. And the counselor replies, well, that sounds like it might be difficult. He's like, yeah. And her face here is just brilliant. She's like literally the greatest of all time.
I just love that line you just said. Like the part where she says, yeah, that's a good question. I chuckled. I thought that was really cute. But I do wonder, does it also sort of indicate instability in her current mental state as well?
Her eyes were like crazy. I don't know.
Yeah.
Freaking out.
Do we know if this is a couples therapy or a regulars therapy? Because I don't understand why Luke is there if it's her therapy.
I was just going to say the same thing.
I'm curious.
I think that Luke was protecting the consultant or the therapist from June. She seems... She was like scared of June, I think.
Yeah, it's highly irregular, I think, to have, if this therapy was intended to focus on her and her therapy, I think it's highly irregular to have anybody else present in her therapy session.
I would say no matter what, probably she should be doing a lot of therapy if we're being realistic during the week. And some of it would involve Luke. if they're trying to make the marriage work.
Something that I didn't like that the therapist said, she was like, oh, infertility takes a toll on people. Kind of like she like gave this woman a pass. That, like,
yeah.
I didn't like that. I didn't like that she didn't like validate that like June was in the right by defending her daughter.
Yeah, there's absolutely no reason to excuse her behavior, like none at all. So yeah, I don't know. That's good. That's a good point. I don't like that either.
She didn't seem very helpful. She didn't seem to really provide much constructive, helpful therapy in this session from what we saw. It was very short though.
No,
we didn't see much of it.
You're all right. I enjoyed her acting, but yes, the fact that she's like, oh, I don't know.
It's like their biggest concern is obviously, why she gets so physical or so violent. But I guess it's part of her anger. So I thought maybe they would kind of talk about that in therapy a little bit more in depth, because like you said, Kate, people are asking for her to be in therapy. So I don't know why I just like couldn't really grasp very well like what was going on.
I also thought that maybe the scene was like to show that like traditional therapy is not going to work for June.
She didn't have many answers for her.
She didn't. She's like, oh, that sounds like it's going to be very difficult. Like, yeah. Okay.
Well, at least she was honest. Yeah, that's probably right.
I don't think that's what you look for in a therapist, though. I think guidance is generally valued. Meanwhile, Serena's busting out of jail finally. So how long has she been there? Maybe going on 8 or 9 months? Because she was, exactly 1 day pregnant when she got there? And she's pretty pregnant now. So it's been a while. And it's another sad puppy Tuello scene where he's like strongly conveying his personal emotions over his professional requirements. He calls her Serena and tries one last time to convince her to accept asylum as an American citizen from Canada rather than becoming the Gilead ambassador to Canada. She responds, I'm not an American citizen. My allegiance is to God, which is not mutually exclusive, Serena. Finally, Tuello drops the personal plea and assumes his professional demeanor, announcing, then, Mrs. Waterford, you are officially released from the custody of the American government. You'll be restricted to Gilead-affiliated properties in accordance with your lack of diplomatic status. And she seems excited about her new role living at the Gilead Information Center, which sounds absolutely awful to me. And what about her poor kid? I don't know. Anyway, though, Tuello wishes her luck, and she replies, I don't need luck. I have God on my side. Fine, may God guide your steps, but step carefully. You aren't in Gilead. This is a free country, Mrs. Waterford. And he seems genuinely concerned for her, and she seems to maybe take it to heart for a second. And then he shuts the door on his crush, and Serena drives off to start her new life as a prisoner in a slightly larger cell. Oh, we also met her new driver, Ezra Shaw, who's kind of weirdly cute, but unfortunately speaks in the Gilead tongue.
Very large man.
I have that note later. He towers over OT.
Yeah. He's like 6'6", I think I looked up. When Serena said that that's a relief that she's got some privacy, Tuello's face kind of was like really upset because he's like, I'm not going to be like your security guard anymore. So is the whole thing that Serena can only, I guess Tuello explains this later, but Serena can only go certain places?
The one building is what he basically also says later. They've had this one building really. Why on earth would anybody? And also you're extremely findable by June. So if you act like your concern is June finding you, then this is the worst deal on the planet, right? Tuello's offering you freedom to travel anywhere you want.
Well, she'd much rather have power and her status than freedom. It's mind-blowing to me.
Right.
I feel like she like wants like the perks of like being an American citizen, but that also seems like she's like flaunting that like she's still a part of Gilead to Tuello.
She is. Yeah.
I think Serena is more attracted to being an ambassador than being a free single mother. She also still believes in Gilead, like she didn't forget about the purpose of Gilead or what she wrote. She still believes in what Gilead, that is fertility and power in general.
Right. So they pull up to the Gilead Information Center and Ezra welcomes her. You're home away from home, which struck home with me also. We spent some time watching filming on those blocks and got to meet Lizzie and Bradley, who needless to say were amazing human beings. Inside the information center, everything's being painted teal, of course, and Serena was pretty happy about her new prison.
I was just curious, like, when did they start the idea of like the Gilead Information Center? Like,
I think it was all arranged for her.
Yeah, when they wanted to get Serena out of Gilead so she stopped being annoying to them, they kind of got the idea. Let's send her somewhere.
Next, Tuello shows up at June's from there, which honestly threw me off a bit at first. Seeing him without Serena is like seeing Lawrence without Nick. But Luke and Moira think he's there for Hannah. They're furious because he was so close to her and he didn't do anything. But Mark being Mark, he's actually there to talk about Serena. He's here to officially give June notice from the State Department that her other rapist is now free. Remember how well this went last time, Mark? At least the last time he brought bodyguards with him. June asks, where is she? And he just says, here. Gilead owns a pre-war property Canada has unlocked for, I don't know, some reason. I can't remember if he said it or not.
Tuello said Gilead has pre-war property and they've decided to unfreeze assets to improve relations.
Relations with Serena. Relations with the world, I suppose.
Does that mean they have more than that one building then?
Yeah, it sounds
I don't know.
like it.
I'm very confused by it. Because why would Gilead have pre-war property in Canada?
I felt maybe it was American property, and since America is Alaska and Hawaii, it just kind of passed to Gilead. I have no idea. That's the only thing I could come up with.
Luke tells him to get the fuck out of his house. Tuello defends himself, saying she's not even free. She doesn't have a passport. She can't even drive a car. She's limited. Which, incidentally, motherfucker, you did everything in your power to prevent those limitations. He was begging her to be free in Canada. Didn't give a shit about June, but he leaves all that out for some reason. And even without that knowledge, June disses him pretty expertly. I told you about Serena. You didn't listen. God, you're such a fucking disappointment. And Tuello just responds that maybe her expectations were unrealistic. As much as I love Sam Yeager and the Tuello-Serena chemistry entertains us now, in reality, he really is a fucking asshole to June.
I just don't know what else he could have done though. Like, he kind of has to just let her do that, right? Because wasn't that the deal?
My problem is his intentions and motivation.
I feel like he does give a shit about June, but he also has ulterior motives. So it's a bit of a, like, you know, it's half and half. He wants to get what he wants, but he also loves Serena.
Well, well, and I think his primary goal is always what's ever in the best interest of the American government. So if it happens to be whatever he's getting from Serena, then that's what his priority is. And then if it's what he can get from June, then that's what his priority is. That's kind of how I see it.
I like that so June kind of remained calm when like Luke was going off at Tuello and he was like, you're so close to Hannah and you didn't do anything. And to me, in Tuello's defense, like what would he have done? It's not like he could just like take Hannah back with him. June didn't seem as upset that he didn't do anything with Hannah. She seemed more upset about Serena. But Luke seemed more upset about Hannah. So I think it's just that June understands Gilead and she's just more calm about it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. She knows there's nothing you can do when you're 10 feet from someone you want to save in Gilead, you know?
Tuello wasn't even allowed to go to the parties. There's not much that he was going to be able to do there.
As Moira escorts Tuello out, Luke immediately launches into plans for a bureaucratic offense against Serena, and June ignores that and just says she always gets what she wants. Luke tells her, don't worry, we're going to stop this, and she looks at him in that way only June can, and says, I'm not worried. And then that night, when he's asleep, she gets out of bed and goes to dig up the gun she buried. Once again, Tuello and the Americans have failed to punish her rapist, and she's taking justice into her own hands. She pulls up outside the Gilead Information Center at night, which is already being celebrated by her entourage of insane supporters. In the car, she's trying to cock her gun, but it's jammed, probably because she just buried it in the dirt with nothing to protect it. But it's not going to slide, and she sees Serena looking down from her new evil queen window. So she just peels out around the corner and gets out of the car and stares up at her threateningly instead of shooting her. And Serena holds her ground, looking down at her from the window, but she's definitely shaken once June drives away. Ezra comes in and apologizes, but there's nothing he can do. There's no law against her being there.
I just love that June thought the gun would be okay and it's just turned into this like big icicle.
I know. It's completely frozen because she buried it in the snow.
I like that she put the gun in the passenger seat. I know that this seems weird, but it like felt like she was like personifying the gun. Like, I don't know, like, okay, here's your spot next to me. We're going to get Serena.
Instead of the glove compartment or something, she put it in the passenger seat. That's a good point. I also, the moment when she gets out of bed, I think I caught it like the first time, but I wasn't sure. And then the second rewatch, I caught Luke's eyes open as she gets out of bed.
That's what I thought.
Yes. And
Okay.
Yeah.
So he knew. Huh.
He knew, but he didn't go after her, which I kind of think is interesting.
And it's interesting that he would just let her go. Yeah. Especially because the last time she snuck out at night, the whole Fred thing happened.
Exactly. But I kind of wanted to interject that this was another shoot we were able to watch when she pulled up in the car and got out and stared up at the window.
It's crazy like to see it on scene because like so much goes into just shooting all of you just like I don't know how many hours they were there. Yeah. It's like maybe what, a minute, 2 minutes of screen time. So I give
I
like,
know.
everybody so much props for what they do to make these scenes come to life.
Right. It's incredible.
Exactly, because we see the finished product, and like you said, it's 30 seconds, maybe a full minute. I don't even really know how long it was, but that was like a late night shoot. It was over midnight. I think it ended at 2 or 3 in the morning or something like that. It was amazing. I just wanted to also comment on how amazing the crew was.
They were so nice. Everybody was incredible. June comes home and she's doing this thing that she's doing lately, which is being very honest with Luke. All she can think about is shooting Serena in the head, and she doesn't know how to stop herself. And Luke says, it's okay. I'm going to get the codes to shut her down. And she shakes her head. It's not enough. And he says, okay, let's say you shoot her. What then? They take Nicole from you. Actually, I have a question here. Is that land technically Gilead land that Serena's living on? Because wouldn't killing her there not be a concern for the crown? Anyway, though, obviously she shouldn't shoot a pregnant Serena in Newmarket. So Luke tells her she has to try to stop thinking about killing her. And she says, okay, yeah, but it's clearly not okay. I mean, she's not there yet.
Mm-hmm. Well, as far as Luke, I feel like he really is trying here, even though June isn't very impressed by his current suggestions for his approach of building codes and everything. Right. But this is kind of something, this is in his wheelhouse. This is something he understands. This is something he knows how to do. And this is a way I think he feels like he can help and contribute.
Yeah.
So I think we see this a little bit more later, but it's just something that he can't be the fighter. He's not the rebel, but this is something that he understands and he can do.
Yeah. And you know what? I actually feel a little bad for him and how dismissive that she is of it, you know, like she literally completely
he's also talking sense, like
yes.
Like if she does just go shoot pregnant Serena, I mean, yeah, she's probably not going to be able to see her baby again, or Luke or anyone else.
Right. Someone should point out to her she can't kill a baby also, right? You gotta wait until a baby. So you can at least table it for a month or so, right?
Yeah.
But I do, especially because in the end the codes work. And so I do feel bad that even then she seems to be dismissing this. She just doesn't care about anything that's done in a bureaucratic, normal manner.
Yeah, and I think that Luke is thinking about a more long-term, strategy. And I love that he's trying and he doesn't use words like no or stop like he did before.
Mm-hmm. Right. You heard a lot of that in season 4, and now he's saying it's okay, like talking through it, not like, why are you saying that, right? So I like that too.
I also like that I feel like June is being a lot more honest with him this season. Yeah. Like I feel like last season she was hiding a lot of her anger, and now she's telling him that all she can think of is shooting Serena in the head. So like to me that's like a step towards healing herself and whatever relationship they have, be it romantic, co-parenting, friendship, whatever.
Yeah, it makes me wonder why she feels that compulsion to be honest with these things that sound batshit crazy when she tells him, and instead of having her instinct be to hide it. And I think it's because she's scaring herself, and I think these impulses she's having are frightening to her. And I think she wants people to know she's having them so they can stop her. Maybe she's just looking for something like that. And if she keeps it bottled up, then she'll just combust and do something crazy.
I just really wish that she'd spent more time talking to the women at the Mayday camp. Like, I really think that that's the kind of people that could have been more helpful to her.
Mm-hmm. Oh, God, yeah.
Because they have the same kind of mindset, but also they're doing it intelligently and safely, and it just would have been better than like this. You're trying to talk to a normal civilian about it. It makes no goddamn sense.
Because even when Luke tries to understand, and he even verbalizes, "Don't you think I understand that?" There's no way he really can. I mean, even if he's trying to. he can't understand where she's coming from in her mindset. So I totally agree. I think those were the women that she really needed to bond with and talk to. I'm probably even better than a therapist. I mean, like the therapist hasn't been through it either.
Because the therapist is another civilian that hasn't been like killing people in Gilead, state sponsored, multiple different ways of killing people.
June obviously needs to channel her anger and, all her feelings and guilt and try to learn how to live outside of Gilead. But she's just trying to find what works for her. And it's interesting because I think that her anger explodes, as we saw in that scene, when it has to do with Serena, when it has to do with Gilead, when she feels that threat is at her door. Because other than that, besides her trauma, I think she can function. It's kind of interesting to me how when Tuello tells her in episode 1 about what she did and that she was right and what it cost her, the same as in, episode 3. And Lily says, I thought you'd be taller. I don't know how you did it. And they just give her this sense of respect and admiration for the great things that she's done versus people always kind of judging her for the mistakes that she's made or her feeling that she has to fit this mold with the people that she loves because they don't understand her and they're afraid of her anger because they don't feel that way. So I think it's interesting how you see how all of that plays into her character and what perhaps helps her to be better and what isn't really helping her to heal and be better.
Then Janine is struggling to relearn how to walk and Lydia's trying to help her. And I kind of really like how Lydia is caring for her here. It's the most human that she's ever seemed in my eyes. She doesn't even blink when Janine yells fuck. But when Janine gives up and sits down on the bed, Lydia, being Lydia, quotes Luke 8:50. Remember what the Lord said, fear not, believe only, and she shall be made whole. And Janine screams at her to stop talking about the Bible. My legs don't work. This is like season 1. Janine meets season 5 Aunt Lydia, which is interesting. She asks if Esther's woken up yet. And when Aunt Lydia says no, and it serves her right, Janine's outraged. A girl so wicked that she would kill her own sister deserves his retribution, Aunt Lydia yells. She is a child that was hurt and abused. I told you about that. I warned you about her, is what Janine says. And that's so true. She did. And she's just a child. And Aunt Lydia just doesn't see that. And she tries to defend herself. No, I gave her the opportunity to live a life of service and grace, but Janine's done taking her bullshit. Or else she can rot in the colonies. Why don't you just pluck her eye out? Lydia's crying. I gave you the education you needed to live a safe and meaningful life. And here you are, still with us. But Janine's still not done yet. She has reached her breaking point with Lydia. Just stop it. I know what you do to those girls, your precious girls. I see you. I see what you really are. I've still got one good eye, remember? Or are you going to take that one too? And Lydia walks out of the room devastated and stunned that Janine really thinks that of her. And I'm just stunned by the level of acting on the show. It's insane, these scenes.
This scene is incredible.
Oh my God. Both Maddie and Anne just like blew it. It's unbelievable. Hit it out of the park. Anne Dowd is just incredible. And Maddie crushes the scene. So.
And you just see the culmination and the arc that both of these characters have taken up into this point. I mean, this is, like you said, pretty much Janine as we first met her. She's no longer, giving any fucks about anything anymore. She's not putting up her, she's really not, I mean, it always seemed like a defense mechanism to me, how positive she was trying to be during her main time in Gilead. And at this point, though, she's done. She's done with Aunt Lydia. She's done with the whole thing. And now she has to learn how to walk again. So she's extremely frustrated, and you can understand it. And it's just, and I love the unfiltered rage and just the anger that she's expressing and the frustration, and how she's just not, she no longer has any filter with Aunt Lydia. And she's just telling her straight exactly how she feels and what she thinks. And Aunt Lydia allows it now, because she's come a long way too. And she's come to a point where she's realized all the mistakes she's made with these girls. And that's no longer the person she wants to be. And it's no longer how she wants to handle these girls anymore.
Now we are at Serena's first day of work. She's sitting at a desk complaining about her stationery, demanding a crew, but apparently they've run out.
Why is Serena allowed to read and write since she's on Gilead property? I understand why she did it in the ICC, but it's just she's an ambassador, but I don't know.
Yeah, I guess I think we said earlier, this whole thing really seemed to be a way to keep Serena busy so that it would keep her out of Gilead's hair and so I'm thinking that I don't even know if these specifications were made within this agreement. We didn't see that when she was in front of the council, but it just seems like allowances have been made where she's, in order to be this ambassador, she has to have the ability to read and write, because I'm just looking at the stationery and the invitations, and I'm like, well, okay, I guess those rules don't apply anymore.
Yeah, but you're right. For that job role, you would need to. If you're the only person, well, she has employees. Anyway,
but it's such an interesting thing that they would even ever allow a woman to do that. So I think that just goes to show either, I don't know if they fear Serena or if they just want to put her somewhere and keep her busy.
I think it serves a double purpose, like what you said, keep her away from Gilead and use her as a symbol for them to expand the wonders of Gilead. So it's a perfect win-win situation for them.
So she calls Lawrence. Someone has been denying invitations from other embassies on her behalf. Wives seem to have only heard the worst rumors of life back home. Not the fun stuff like Naomi's macaron tower. Serena becomes very businesslike with him and points out that Gilead is the only country with an increasing birth rate. I believe I'm in a unique position to advertise that, being pregnant and all. And then Lawrence grants her, okay, maybe an afternoon tea. And then asks if she wants to talk about anything else, nursery colors, nocturnal visits from a certain local stalker. Apparently Ezra told Lawrence about her nighttime visitor. Serena retorts, I'm not that easily scared. She's just like a child stomping her feet. And he says that child has been known to misbehave badly. I'd avoid her. Which, as they hang out, that promptly gives her an idea and she picks up some stationery.
Do you guys think that Lawrence didn't want Serena to mess with June for June or for Serena?
There's a very weird thing I'm picking up on here where it feels like he cares about Serena a little. I don't know. Am I the only one?
I thought in the last episode, it gave me that impression, but I was not 100% sure.
I still think he probably doesn't like her, but because of what Fred did to her, maybe he feels sorry for her.
Yeah, and for the baby.
Yeah, there's something about him saying, well, take care of your kid that, I think maybe he actually has taken to heart. I don't know.
I mean, it just seemed like he was concerned about her. I don't think he cares for her deeply, but I think he is a decent human and wants, cares about her well-being.
Yeah, so she picks up the stationery and then June's playing in the dirt. The sound was distorted while she was lost in thought. And then she comes inside and finds Moira holding a note addressed to Offred. And you know what? I don't think Moira would actually give her that. It seems very in character for Moira to not give her that note. What do you guys think?
I feel like she's withholding more things from June because she's scared of what state June is in.
That's why I don't think she gave her the note. It's similar to the Mayday camp. She wasn't going to tell her about that. Why would you give her a threat from or dare or whatever it is?
Maybe she thought it had anything to do with Hannah, but I agree. It's weird that she would just give her a note that says you're Offred when they know Serena is in Canada.
Yeah. If it said June, I would get it, but not Offred.
Mm-hmm. It's the only person who would have sent her that and put Offred on there. There's no other person who would have done that. And it's a really good question.
But she does, and it's an announcement for the opening of the Gilead Information Center. And June is very displeased. And Luke says something about codes, and June loses her shit, and she says she's going to bring it here. The only way to stop her and them is to put them all on the fucking ground. And by now, her yelling has awoken Holly, who's crying, and then she grabs a plate and throws it at the counter, which was kind of cool, and yells, fuck. But I really liked how she threw the plate at the counter.
Me too.
I don't know. Something about it was very satisfying to me. And she goes to Holly to console her. And she's being super sweet, great mom. And God, this baby's so cute. She sits in the rocker. She puts the baby back in the crib. And she's so cutely playing with the toy. I wish that toy was stalled. But anyway, she sits in the rocker. June sits in the rocker and asks Moira, shit, what am I doing? What the fuck was that? And Moira's pretty understanding and nice here. And which I love, being really angry. And June starts bitching about Luke and his codes and how they've never done shit. And he keeps doing the same thing. But Moira says, June, he's right. This is a refugee town and we have to be careful or we'll get shipped away. A lot of people will suffer. Moira swears she will dance on her grave with her as soon as the dirt's in, but she's not worth losing your family over.
Maybe that's what the dirt at the start of the scene was showing.
Oh, good point. No, it probably is. Yeah, it makes sense for me. And June asks her, what if this is who I am now? And Moira says, I don't worry about you being with her anymore, and that's not nothing.
I was just going to say that I love how she is instantly calmed by holding Nicole, I think. And then also when she says she wants to stay here for a while, I think it's because being in the nursery close to Nicole calms her. And it seemed like she needed some type of calming presence to kind of rein her in because she was very, very upset.
It's interesting to see that her calming and her center right now is Holly, but it also kind of makes me sad every time that they have a scene together, because you see her enjoying these moments that she probably thought she was never going to have. But in the back, you can see the pain of not being able to be with Hannah. So she's always torn in those two sides. And it's really heartbreaking to see.
Mm-hmm. I think this is one situation where Luke is right because I do think it makes more sense to take the calm approach rather than let's just kill her. I think Moira going in to tell her that. I mean, she's right about both that this is a refugee town. We have to play by their rules, and like Luke said, let's try this. Let me try this. Let's try this first. This more calm approach first before we start, getting violent.
Yeah.
Yeah, Luke's come to visit Serena, and she tells Ezra to send him in. Ezra pats him down. Serena holds his stare as he does it. And Ezra is very tall because she seems quite tall, and Ezra's at least half a foot taller, which Kimberly apparently has Googled, and he is 6'6". Anyway, she asks Luke why he's here, and he asks why she's here, to show the people how to live better. And Luke claims there are protesters out there, and she says they're the opposite of protesters, which is all that we've seen so far here. But I actually feel a little sad for Luke when he pulls out his codes and Serena basically laughs at him and is entertained as June is annoyed by them. Is that what you came here to tell me? We have issues with the plumbing here? And then Luke says, I also came here to tell you my wife is going to kill you and I'm going to let her. And I just got to object to his words, Luke. Nobody lets June do anything.
Me too. He was doing so well.
I know, he's been doing really well.
Giving him the benefit of the doubt on all these things, but as soon as he said, my wife is going to kill you and I'm going to let her, I was just,
It's that pattern of speech that is...
I think that he say that because he knows that June is the only person that Serena is afraid of, because she knows exactly what June is capable of. So yeah. I think he did that because he was so
emasculated.
Yeah.
Emasculated in that when the Guardian was searching.
Yeah.
So
that was weird too. I kind of skipped that. He definitely lingered over the thighs and crotch area.
I didn't hate that line, to be honest, but I don't know if I'm just not reading into it like you guys are, but I just thought he meant, he's not going to try and stop it.
If he had said June is going to kill you, I wouldn't have as much of a problem with it. There's something about
end
the
of
fact
statement, June's going to kill you.
It's the possessive language that he uses so often that I take
you mean like when he said
sometimes.
My wife is going to kill you?
My wife. Yeah.
Okay.
No, he said something like,
I'm going to let her. It's bothered me.
I'm going to let my wife kill you.
It's so random how we all have different thoughts, because I just thought he's just not going to stop it. Like if he sees her tearing her apart, he's just going to be like, okay, see ya. You can die.
I agree, Kimberly. I interpreted it the same way.
That's what I thought at first. Like I agree with you guys, but then at the end of the scene, when we get there, I'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree. It comes back. One more aside on that note. Like Dave, my husband, actually has tried very hard to understand my dislike for this my wife thing that Luke has done. And what we finally got to is when he says it, a lot of times he says it at a time when like he doesn't need to say it, he could say her name, but also he emphasizes the my instead of like wife. He says that this is my wife, or I will let my wife do this. And like that possessive emphasis is what drives me.
Yeah.
The ownership of it.
Yes, especially coming from Gilead, from a place where she was owned by a man.
Exactly.
I'm not saying he did that here either. I'm literally just saying that Dave and I have had this discussion a lot because he's listened to the podcast and he's like, tell me what it is. I don't understand. And he listens, and that's lovely. Hi, Dave.
Can I say something about Serena? So I noticed she was wearing like a suit, like jacket coat, where in all the other scenes she was wearing like her wife teal dress. I felt like this was very much like a power move for this scene. You could tell that Serena still kind of had like the upper hand in the conversation with Luke.
The way she was sitting as well.
Yeah, she was just like when he came in, she just like sat down and like relaxed, like she wasn't intimidated at all.
Mm-mm.
I like that you mentioned that because I don't know how to
Yeah.
describe that, but I agree totally.
Yeah, she was like, okay, whatever,
Mhm.
like let him in, I'll listen. And then she also mentioned when she was referring to Hannah, she said Agnes. I thought that was very significant since the episode is entitled Dear Offred. We talk a lot about, you know, the different names of Gilead and what they mean. So obviously it was very purposeful and throwing it back in Luke's face that she's not Hannah anymore, she's Agnes.
Yeah, and now that you mention it,
Mhm.
which makes sense, of course. I don't think she used June's name either. I think she said when your wife came back in.
Mhm.
But anyway, Luke tells Serena she can get kicked out or get killed or just help us get Hannah back. And Serena tells him Agnes is happy. She has fit and loving parents, just as the good Lord intended. Who am I to question God's will? And Ezra's watching. The camera goes to him. Come to think of it, I do wonder why you never returned to save your daughter. I mean, there were risks, of course, which your wife took, and she suffered for them many times. Then again, she did have Nick's support. I'm sure that did give you some small comfort knowing that. And Luke's in tears as he leaves with a threat, finally feeling the urge to kill her after that taunt. You stay away from my family, and the next time I see you, I'm gonna fucking kill you myself. And Serena does actually look a little bit shaken afterwards.
That was a major burn. That's gonna hurt. That was gonna hurt.
He couldn't hide how much it hurt.
I know that he was hurt, you know, obviously when they're talking about Hannah and Agnes, like Marigold said, but it's interesting to me how his anger sparked, obviously, when the subject of Nick came along. And it just reminded me of that conversation that he had with Fred, because they don't talk about Nick, but they talk about June and how Fred changed June. And that's kind of like what sparks his anger. And I don't know, I wanted to know what you guys thought.
Was that in season 3?
Season 3.
Yeah.
He goes to the court to speak to Fred with a file and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Luke was so guilty before Serena mentions Nick involvement, because he was like almost crying when she mentions Agnes. And I think he has a lot of guilt because he wasn't able to do anything. But after Serena mentioned that Nick protected June, he knew what happened, and he was more angry. That I think that Luke did a mistake, because when he said about getting Hannah, information about Hannah, he was talking low at the beginning with Serena. He made the mistake that he showed his weakness to Serena, and Serena knows perfectly how to treat men and women, especially men. I think
when he said, "Oh, you can just help us get Hannah back," like his voice changed, and it made me really sad, because obviously, that's all they want.
Well, and really, that moment seemed like he was trying to relate to her on a human level. Like, maybe I can appeal to this woman. Maybe there's just a shred of decency inside her. June's been there too. You know, June had achieved these moments of camaraderie with Serena, and then she would attempt to make the same pleas to Serena about seeing Hannah, and it would immediately strike her down. I mean, so I think he's trying to appeal to whatever humanity may be inside Serena. But what I was going to say earlier was that it's just, I mean, this is where she's still an evil mastermind, because she delivers a 1-2 punch on Luke, his two most vulnerable, you know, the two things that he cares about the most are his daughter and this relationship his wife had in Gilead that he's still not 100% sure where she stands with that right now, and just having Serena point both of those out to him one after the other. So, well, first of all, the fact that he didn't go in after them, and that's something he's carried with him over the past 7 years. So that was the first vulnerable moment for him, and then the other one was Nick. So she just really knew how to hit him both, boom, boom, just one after the other.
I got an interesting question for you all. Do you think, I remember in the last episode, obviously we found out that Moira knew about Mayday along the border, and obviously she hadn't told June. But do you think if Luke knew about that, he would have gone in?
I don't think so.
I genuinely don't think so.
I mean, I know he carries around that guilt, but he's not the fighter. He's not the rebel who would go in, and honestly, he wouldn't have survived.
Yeah.
I think that because he doesn't know how Gilead works, he just goes through the bureaucratic route, which is what most people that want to do changes do, petitions and stuff. And, you know, those things sometimes work, sometimes they take a long time, and sometimes they don't work. So it's two completely different worlds. So I know he feels that he failed because he couldn't do anything. It's not like he could go in and get him. Like, I understand that. And he feels guilty for it. Throughout the 4 seasons, we've seen it. So I think it's just a matter of perspective. I was kind of going through the interviews for the season 5 premiere. There's quite a few. And it was interesting to me that I was watching an OT interview where he talks about how, you know, his journey in season 5 and how obviously his priority is Hannah and Nicole and June's well-being, and how Serena wasn't really on his radar, obviously because he didn't know, I guess, up until the testimony what had happened, and that something happens in the season that kind of pushes him to kind of care a little bit more about Serena. And the person interviewing him asked him if it was, you know, the showing of Hannah in the screens, and he's like, no, something happens further down, like mid-season, that kind of pushes him into that direction. So I figured that's what he meant, that it was this particular scene, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
It's probably both, like
He said both,
her calling her Agnes and then saying she's with a loving family, and then obviously the Nick talking about.
She also called them fit parents. She got that in there too.
Yeah.
She got like, I mean, that was like a master class.
Yeah.
Fucking with somebody. Like, well done, Serena.
I wonder if she'd written this down, or she'd been preparing the speech for a while. Yeah.
Now we have another Lawrence and Lydia scene, which I enjoy. Lawrence is lecturing Lydia again. Another handmaid on handmaid attack. No fatalities this time. And Lydia points out that fortunately Esther is the last of the girls under her influence. And Lawrence says, can't even say her name. And she says, June. Surprised she didn't call her of Lawrence or whatever she was last. Of Joseph, I mean. Lawrence tells her Gilead is opening its doors a crack and the handmaid system needs to be running smoothly. No chocolates dipped in poison. And then Lydia suggests a whole new system. Handmaids stay at the Red Center. Commanders come to them for the ceremony to prevent such harmful situations in the future. And Lawrence translates, a kind of handmaid's hotel where you're the concierge. And she says, I believe God will be better served if handmaids aren't at postings. Yes, or what are you smoking? Commanders want those girls in their homes so they can sniff the air when they walk by or whatever gets their rocks off. These are pious men. They need a little kink. And summarizes, the handmaid system isn't changing. Rein in your girls. Not too tight, though. I can't afford scars.
It's just funny to me that Lawrence is like, don't you know that? And Lydia's like, do I? And he's like, don't you? And like, it's like she pushes everything back and she doesn't want to know how bad the system is, but she really does. And Lawrence is trying to pull that out of her. Yeah. That's what I feel like. He's trying to say, well, don't you know how disgusting these men are already?
Yeah.
But it's interesting, you know, he calls it a handmaid's hotel and he scoffs at that, but it also sounds a lot like a brothel where, you know, the handmaids just hold up in this location and the commanders come and do their thing, and it's like trying to make this
different Jezebels.
Yeah, trying to make this any semblance of decent is impossible. she's trying to find a way to protect the handmaids. I think she's still on her twisted level. She believes in the ceremony part, and she's trying to find a way to get the ceremony to happen in a way that isn't going to damage these girls in other ways, so that they're not being abused on the regular in addition to the ceremonies. But it's a different perverted idea that she has.
I mean, and that's what he's pointing at. He's basically calling her a pimp or...
Yeah. Lawrence also knows that the other commanders are not going to go for it. So he's not going to even propose it. Even if he... I mean, I know he doesn't agree with the handmaid system, but he can't really be like, we're not going to do this. Like, they've been grilling him because he's not married. So he can't really go up to the council and suggest it because it's not going to be good for him.
When Lawrence said they want to sniff the air when they go by, that was just gross.
So gross. Ugh. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, he's not denying at all how perverse the commanders are. He knows exactly what Lydia is trying to avoid, but he's like, they're not going to agree to this. So it's going to happen whether you like it or not.
Now we see June is back at the Gilead Information Center, and Serena and Luke were both right. There are both crowds outside protesting. This time, June probably has her gun in working order. Serena's upstairs taking pretty pregnancy pictures. She wants to pose in the natural light, but Ezra won't let her near the window. She sees something that interests her and kind of veers off of her murderous path, and it's Danielle and Vicky from episode 1 and 410, and Moira's with them. And June gets between a guy and Danielle fighting, and the dude punches Moira. June pulls her gun on him and then fires it in the air, and Luke appears all of a sudden, telling her to go. She asks what he's doing here, and I think this comes directly after the Luke-Serena confrontation. Even though she's changed clothes, I think that's why she asked in the beginning, do I have enough time to talk to him? Anyway, she finally listens to him, and they round the corner and run into Serena and Ezra. Ezra's the worst bodyguard ever. He doesn't even pull his gun or stand in front of Serena. But maybe he doesn't like her. I don't know. Anyway, June decides not to pull her gun in the end. And the camera does zoom to Serena's stomach, so perhaps that's why, which is a very good reason, as I mentioned. But she lets Luke get her to run in the opposite direction as Ezra and Serena get in the car.
Yeah, now that we're at this part, it makes me wonder why she ever was so determined to shoot her, because she knows she's pregnant, and I don't understand why she would ever. I mean, I know what she's got against Serena, but I don't actually believe that she would murder her while she's pregnant. So it's interesting to me that she made these early attempts, or she had that in her head that she was going to do that when she knows she's pregnant.
Well, her earlier threat to her last season was, I want your baby to die in your womb. So I agree with you.
But did she want to do it?
Yeah.
I think June might not even be able to kill Serena when she's not pregnant. For some reason, I just can't see her doing it.
I think that's actually kind of what we saw here. Even though they did look at the stomach, what my feel from it was that she just chose not to kill her for whatever twisted reason. She thought she wanted to, and then she realized, I can't do it. And I don't know why.
Yeah.
I guess it just goes back to as well, like in season 3, when after Fred and Serena had, pinned her down and raped her when she was 9 months pregnant. Even in season 3, like she still had those bonding moments with Serena, like in was it the Putnam's pool house or whatever, when they were talking,
smoking on the lounge chairs.
Yeah, and so they've got a. What's the word? Is it Stockholm Syndrome, trauma bond?
Stockholm Syndrome.
All of the above, I think.
Yeah.
They've got some issues in that relationship.
Definitely.
I think it's also because Serena's a woman and she empathizes a little bit more because of it.
I really wish that they hadn't had Serena rape her at 9 months pregnant. Like, that's the...
Oh my God. Me too.
That's the tipping point.
Well, that's the thing I can never forget. And it's anytime they get close to making her sympathetic or redeemable, I'm like, nope, she did that, and I can't.
Yeah.
I can't ever get past that.
And it was her idea.
It was her idea.
And she also married Nick to a child because he cared about her. So there are lots of things, but it's
a lot. Yeah, it is a lot.
I don't know, like, you're rooting for them sometimes to be friends, but ultimately I can't really, because of these things that she's done, So Ezra is driving Serena off, and he tells her they found a secure location for her, and when she asks where it is, he replies, for those who are truly righteous, he sometimes sends a refuge. And then Janine is getting out of the hospital, a theme of women being released from places in this episode. Janine's not her ship herself, though. She's bitter and angry, it seems, as she struggles to walk out of the hospital with assistance. And Lydia's still desperately trying to get old, optimistic Janine back, and tells her God saved you for a reason, as Janine is struggling to get to the car. And she replies angrily, I don't think God did this to me or saved me. When they get in the red van, Lydia immediately admits, I should have listened to you about Esther. Janine, I need your help with the other girls. And Janine asks, what kind of help? And she says, you know them. You understand them in ways I do not. Will you watch over them and tell me when any of them are struggling? And I like when Janine says, Aunt Lydia, if I do, you'll just do something horrible. She says, no, I want to do things differently. I want to address any problems early with more compassion. We can shepherd these girls together and keep them on God's path. And then when they get back to the Red Center, everyone's sitting very orderly on their beds, heads bowed, scared of Aunt Lydia. And Lydia says, God may test us body and soul, but he will always reward the most righteous. And she leaves her then. And once she's fully gone, all the women run to Janine and embrace her. So she's like really well loved. And Janine's telling her tale as exciting. I almost died.
It was so cute.
I really liked it.
It was nice to see like a throwback of, like, we haven't seen that for a while.
The Handmaid love.
I was just gonna say that, And it didn't really hit me until I saw that scene. I was like, God, we haven't had a scene like that in a really long time, with just a lot, with the camaraderie of the handmaids. We haven't seen that in a while.
It reminded me of that scene in, I think it's 104, when after June's feet are whipped, when Moira escapes.
Oh.
And they bring her the food. They all drop the food because she can't stand up. It reminded me of that scene too.
Yes, I love that. Luke and June pull up to the house in their car, and he tells her they're shutting down the building for construction violations. And she still doesn't seem to care, which is kind of shitty because he actually succeeded with his codes. And she's looking at her gun, and it's working now. But when he says, "Let me see that gun," and he cocks it and asks if she cleaned it, she says, I watched a YouTube video.
To be honest, I love the line because it's so true to like what people would do these days. You just go on YouTube and you know what to do.
It is good, yeah. And she tells him, "I didn't do it this time, but I can't promise I won't do it next time." And she seemed a little bit out of character there. I don't know. Did you guys think that she seemed like her normal June self? Any of her June selves?
If this all just felt weird to me. Like, I hated that he like was condescending about like, "Oh, did you clean this gun yourself?" She's the capable woman. She's handled the gun many times before now.
I think it's interesting that Luke is examining it like he's an expert.
Yeah.
Well, so last time we saw him handling a gun, he like bobbled it, and you couldn't, and that's
fine. And I won't fault him for that because he was under a lot of pressure. That was horrible. So I get that, but
I need more information on that. Is the thing. I need to know, like, it was going to the gun range or something, you know, like something that told me he knows anything about guns.
You kind of hope so, right? You kind of hope that he'd gone and got some lessons after what happened.
Yes.
Maybe he did.
Yeah, maybe he did. I mean, I guess he has to have, with knowing that she had cleaned the gun.
Did you think he was using the gun? It sort of seemed to me like he was using the gun flirtatiously.
Turn her on? Yeah.
I think killing turns June on.
Yes. Especially killing Serena.
And especially knowing that Serena's scared of her. I think that also turns her on.
Yeah.
Did the dialogue go that she was saying she didn't do it this time, but she would do it next time? And then he said something after that about
he just echoed it, basically.
That he would do the same, or he would do it, or something like that.
I can't promise that I won't either. I guess we'll just have to trust each other. Do you want to go inside?
There you go.
I think that's what, like, the trusting part, that was like the cherry on top. But I also think that he basically just came from that conversation with Serena. That's in the back of his mind. So I think he's trying to be different.
He was.
Yeah.
I think her seeing Luke like that, wanting to step up a bit more and also agreeing with her, was also, what caused her to want to go inside.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about one of the last times they were in a car together was in the season 4 finale when he was telling her she had to move on, and that did not go over well. So in this situation, he's actually playing along, he's agreeing with her, he's in line with her way of thinking, and that was much more effective.
Again, it felt like very, like, she sounded strange in that exchange. But anyway, she's getting turned on, and he says, "Do you want to go inside?" And she says, "Not really." And they start kissing, and then they have sex to Fleetwood Mac's The Chain, but the sex is intercut with scenes of Serena and Ezra arriving at the Wheeler house. By the way, as Break the Chain is being said, the gate is closing on the driveway, and you see the W for Wheeler is a broken W. But do you guys have thoughts on why these scenes are presented together like this, intercut like that?
It confused me a lot.
Because it sort of seemed to be connected to Serena, why June seemed to be in the mood in the first place.
Serena's misery or suffering turns June on. So maybe that is related.
I do agree with that. I think it does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, because if you think about 407, when June last had sex with him, she came from, screaming at Serena. So
right, a powerful move against Serena, and it turns her on. So
I did want to, the way that the love scene begins with June and Luke, seems to begin kind of intimate, but then they cut away to the scene with Serena, and when they cut back, that's when it seemed to be more detached. It seemed more like a one-night stand instead of like a reconnection, lovemaking between the two of them.
I was just thinking that, we've had the flashback of them being together that first time. So I wasn't like, I don't know. I thought that reconnecting was going to be a little bit more intimate, especially coming off from the scene in 407. I'm not saying that that type of sex cannot be intimate, but it's just a process in the story. Like I wasn't expecting that to be their quote unquote reconnection, especially because the scene cuts to something that has nothing to do with what we're seeing. So
I think that's what I meant, was that it just didn't seem like if I were to imagine them, finally having this moment of reconnection and making love again after everything they've been through, I don't think I wouldn't have expected it to play out this way.
Yeah.
The thing for me is like putting Nick aside entirely for a minute, and obviously like we all really love the Nick June relationship. Fairly clear about our bias there. And I absolutely love Lizzie more than life itself. I also really love OT. He's amazing in this and like so many other projects. Big fan of both of them. But in their roles in this show, it just seems like they're friends and co-parents at best. So watching them kiss and have sex feels really odd to me, especially after season 4, but also even like just even anyway. And then obviously you take Nick into consideration, and we've seen this female character have this unbelievable connection and intimacy with somebody else repeatedly over the 4 seasons of the show. And their love and passion like only grow despite consistently crazy obstacles. And so watching her with Luke like this, it takes away from that for me. It doesn't make me think that Luke and June belong together anymore. It just takes away from the epicness of Nick and June for me. I'm sure not everybody feels that way, but that's how like the scene felt for me to watch. And again, I think they're great. I just think that like recognizing that they're very different and moving on as friends would have been a lot more powerful of a story than trying to
force it.
Yeah. I noticed that the ending like scene with Luke naked, like curled up beside her and her under the blankets was similar to the Yoko Ono and John Lennon album cover, I think.
I don't know if I'm going like too far off the deep end with my observation, but when I was like, okay, why is he naked? Why is she covered up? And I was like, well, maybe they're trying to symbolize that he's like completely open to her. He's naked. He's vulnerable with her, but she's still closed off from him.
That's smart. Yeah, that's a very good point.
Like maybe there's a reason why.
I like that.
Dude also hasn't had good sex for like 7 years. So.
Yeah, that's true. Where she has.
I hope he has.
You were asking about the song. The song is from Fleetwood Mac. It's a 1977 song from the Rumors album. And it was a song written after 2 couples in the band were breaking up, but it was mainly about Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham breaking up. So obviously it's a real tense time in the band. And when you kind of research the song, they just talk about how it wasn't recorded. I think first they had the music and then Stevie Nicks added the lyrics, and how they were able to maneuver that whole tense situation and finally do the song. But I researched a little bit more, and some of the meanings in the lyrics says, opening lyrics set the tone for a person that hasn't slept all night, waiting for their lover to come home, finally realizing that this person is cheating on them with a new love. It's the realization of the ending of the relationship. The chain is a metaphor for the relationship, and in that one part of the relationship is disappointed in such a way the relationship is threatened, and one part of the relationship wants the chain to remain strong.
Is June cheating on Serena right now?
That was really interesting, Scarlett, and relevant. Yeah, and then the episode ends with Serena being welcomed into Alanis Wheeler's house and being obviously freaked out by the creature that she's created. This is like the exact person, seems like that, Gilead wants women to be.
Yeah, it was interesting because the house obviously is very Gilead-like. Alanis was wearing teal. She bent down to touch Serena's belly like Serena did to June.
Yeah.
And she was pregnant. Serena looked mildly concerned, realizing what the fuck have I just come to, and the Bible verse. So it was all very interesting.
Yeah,
I thought you researched the Bible verse, Kimberly.
Yeah, it's from because I thought usually in the show they like to make Bible quotes up, but this was from James 17 and James 18. They just omitted like one line from the quote. Every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the heavenly lights. He chose to give us birth through the word of truth, for he may be a kind of first fruits of all that he created. And then omitted from the verse was, who does not change like shifting shadows.
And June burns the Offred letter, so perhaps no more Offred. I don't know. What do you guys think of the end?
I think she might think that, but I don't think she's going to be free of Offred. Like this whole kind of like Offred versus June thing is, I understand it, but she can't switch like Offred off. Like it's part of who she is and who she became. So I don't know how that works.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, you could, sometimes people burn things to cleanse things and to release it, but I think you're right that she can burn it, and maybe it's symbolic that she is trying to release or let go of Offred, but I don't, I think you, like you said, she can't really totally do that.
We shall find out next week. I think that's a wrap on our analysis of season 5, episode 4 of The Handmaid's Tale. Come back next Wednesday for our discussion on season 5, episode 5, and check us out on our social media. We are on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, etc., and we post every day. So thank you for listening. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
I don't know. It's like how Kaya plays soccer. She like runs around with the kids, but I can tell she's actively avoiding kicking the ball. I don't know why.
This is the blooper. This is the blooper. Yeah.
Girl after my own heart.